useful tool, and if you find it a useful tool, for them to use it on multiple projects over time, even beyond the length of the project. It's really just giving your staff another tool in their toolbox that they can use on any number of things going forward. And it allows you, I think, again, another lens to think about in your decision-making processes. That's all. I'm happy to answer questions, and I put Katya's, my colleague Katya Sabados is here. She's the lead on the project, and so I put her contact information here if you have any questions as we go forward.
Should we have a motion, Joan, before we ask questions and discuss?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve this
I'll move approval.
resolution? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Do you have any questions?
I just wanted to add a little bit. When we were talking about sending staff to training, I guess, as staff, we were talking about at least most of the 5 who would attend the training would be the people that were involved directly with the university year projects, and that this could be a way to maybe continue and build on some of those things that we got out of that project. That being said, until we start seeing the results come in, the presentations are actually starting this month. They've just started. And, and this concept that you're talking about is very broad. So, it's hard to say, yes, this is absolutely going to be a perfect fit until I think we get through the other side. But, I guess, at least in my mind, that's how I would see it is, a way to continue some of the things that we have learned in the UCY and maybe build on some of those concepts because, there's housing, transportation, and parks is another one, but parks is, I think, another one that affects, different aspects of our community. So,
yeah, I think that would be actually a really smart use of the resources here. My understanding of what you're getting from the university year is a good list of ideas. But ideas have to be implemented. This could be a chance for you to take one or more of those ideas and move it a little bit farther along towards implementation if that's what you chose to do.
Because I think a lot of what we get from university will be, somewhat conceptual in nature. So,
Any other questions? Mr. Holmquist?
So that last statement, when we got into the university project, one of our main concerns was exactly what you just said, which is we would have things that were conceptual and not implemented kind of action steps. And so some of the concern is we've entered into something previously, and there's been some great work out of university. I don't discount that. I'm concerned that we would be entering a second phase of something with the same kind of outcome or goal that we had previously. Although I actually see this as very tangible, very easy to see how the training and implementation of using a model such as that is pretty straightforward compared to what we entered previously. So that's one part. A question I had was, why were the communities that were Green Tier Legacy chosen?
It's an excellent question. Let me answer that and then speak to your comment as well, which I think is very much on point. The funding for this project comes from the School of Medicine at UW, and they require a pre-existing community network or organization and a pre-existing academic partner come together and partner on the work. So, there's been multiple applications and grants over the years under this particular pot of funding, and they all look very different. But in our case, because COWS was a founding member of the Green Tier Legacy Communities Network, and we're a founding member of University Year Alliance, it sort of made sense that would be the place that we would come together, that we would bring that community side in with the academic side. We could have chosen a different community network, but because we have the long history there, it made sense. It's also a sort of conveniently numbered number of communities. We don't think we could handle that many more. It does look like almost all of the legacy communities will sign on to the project.
And the reason I have that question is there's some, my guess is a lot of the communities that are green tier legacy communities likely when they are creating policy, not only are taking into account sustainability efforts and other aspects related to some of those determinants of health.
Well, I think that yes and no. They all are taking into account some sort of sustainability because they've made that commitment as part of the legacy communities work. But actually, the group of legacy communities added health to its list of issues less than 2 years ago. And when we did a survey of the communities, they the vast majority, like 90% of them, reported not knowing how to get to work on the health portion of things. So we actually saw this as an opportunity to help, sort of meet that need that was expressed by the communities, that they wanted to work on health, but they weren't sure how to do it outside of the context of the sort of traditional public health realm. I think that your point, though, that this is different from the university year is a very important one. We are completely agnostic as to what project you choose. And we are not promising you a report or any additional ideas. What we're promising you is that when you pick an idea, a thing that you want to do, your staff pick an idea, we will help you do that. And we can't promise that it will all work out. We can't promise that your staff will come up with a thing that you all decide that you want to vote to fund or whatever it might be, but we'll certainly do our best to push that towards implementation, and to not leave you with just yet another sort of stack of information that maybe someday you'd get to.
Perfect, thanks.
So just to be clear, the training that the staff would go through is prior to the picking of the project? In other words, it's not
Yes.
project specific?
It's not project specific, that's correct.
So
I should say
staff could come back from the
first
training
round.
and decide
Yeah.
if there's the thing that is most applicable, if you will,
Yeah.
given the current.
Yes. Yeah, we actually have the Dane County training scheduled for late May. And it's our expectation that we will get we're going to have, it's unimportant to you, but we'll have 4 trainings around the state. We expect to get all of the communities trained up and then to work with each of them to decide what their project will be. We also expect to do a follow-up training, which may be slightly more project specific, but that's really going to depend on the need of the communities.
And just to April, to your point again, if you had to judge the staff's level of enthusiasm?
That's an interesting question. I think we probably feel a little bit like you do, and I think they acknowledge it because if you look in the materials, it says what is this and what is this really, and I think maybe we, without really talking to them specifically about this, we all kind of feel like, until we get through the training, where it's a little hazy on how this will work. But yeah, I do think, at least for some of our staff members, the UCY project definitely did add some staff time. And, I go to visit those staff members and they're almost literally running out the door some days. I mean, so they are very busy, but, I think eventually it will move into one direction and, it will be a continuation of, something. Because I agree, if we don't use these UCY projects, they're not going to be very useful. But if we could get somebody to take something we identified as we need more information, or this is a tough issue, or we want to do more with it, the thought is somebody actually holding our hand and maybe taking it to that next level. If it's something that we think we want to do anyway, I think that's the key point. yeah, we don't need new to do, that's
No.
for sure, no.
No, not interested in bringing you any, I mean, if you want new ideas, I'm sure we could come
Yeah,
up
I
with
mean,
some, but
and
I
maybe there's something bubbling up, you know, we've got new council members, new strategic issues, I'm sure that will be brought forward, so, you know, I don't know, maybe there will be something that bubbles up, but.
You could almost view this, at least the training part, as professional development.
Alderwood?
Just a comment, I guess, on the UCY program and where those are at. I've attended 3, I think, of the presentations of from the various groups. One on sort of the safe streets, one on the more the planning and land use aspect, and then last week one on parks. And it was sort of depending on the subject and the whether it was undergrad or graduate level coursework. Some of the projects and the reports are much more developed and sort of project ready. Some of the safe streets things are, you know, there's probably things in there that we won't do or don't want to do, but they're much closer to, like, it wouldn't take that much to turn many of their the things in that report to a reality. On the other end, I guess the parks, which was a landscape architecture junior senior level class, it was great to see. It was 15 UW upper class students presenting 5 separate master plan visions for Winnequa Park, and then there's 3 students on each team, and within each master plan they came up with their own proposal for a specific park. Those things were, most of them, way far off from being ready to do. Some great ideas, but that may be useful or will be useful in finalizing the our Winnequa Park master plan. So I guess I see it as, once we get through in the next few weeks of the final reports and presentations coming in, that then the implementation of the UCY project will be spread out just sort of naturally, I think. So.
Any other questions or comments? Alder Spade?
I have a few projects that I'd like to see us implement that are consistent with this program that you're here to talk to us about. And my concern is just that, you know, this body has to act. We have to stand up and take a stand and do some of these things. So we can talk about this stuff until the cows come home. But we, you know,
Oh, yeah.
we have to actually do it. And so I think that it's going to be demoralizing to staff if we keep talking about all the great things that cities are doing that are vibrant, healthy cities, but we can, you know, we're just talking about it. So that would be my comment. So I say if we're eager to roll up our sleeves and take on some of this stuff, then I say let's do it. But if we're having, you know, kind of enthusiasm fatigue from dreaming, but not being willing to do, then, you know, I'm here to do it. I want us to move forward with this, but that's my take.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Next item, 1B, consideration of resolutions number 17-4-2171, approving a resolution recommending the amendment of provisions that shift a greater property tax burden from commercial to residential homeowners. Again, City Administrator Little.
Okay. No new information from last time. Just for the people that are new in the audience, This is some legislation that the League of Wisconsin Municipalities is requesting help from municipalities around the state. It's really more of a national issue. There's kind of two components to it. One is the dark store component, where tax attorneys for big box stores like Home Depot, Target, and so forth, they're using what they call a dark store strategy to argue that assessed value of a new, brand new store that was just built is comparable and should be based on the market value of a similar size retail property that might be vacant and abandoned. So, for example, if you have a vacant and abandoned Kmart store and you have a brand new Target store, those two properties should be comparable. So what will happen if they are successful is that will shift the property tax burden more onto the residential homeowners. So that is one component of the dark store strategy. The other one is based on getting our legislature to overturn the Walgreens decision. And basically their argument is that the actual sale prices of the properties don't represent market value, and the underlying leases are not the right tool for determining the property's value for property tax purposes. But both of these things are kind of a method to shift the burden more off of the big box stores onto the residential homeowners. We haven't seen too much action here yet. We do have some big box stores, but Walmart did investigate coming to Board of Review last year, so we see that there could be some movement in this area that would affect our taxpayers. And there was a ton of information on in your packet about this. I don't know, Bill, if you have anything to add on this. I'm sure you guys are following it to the municipal attorneys around the state. Okay.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Let me just reiterate my support for this. Again, I talked to State Senator Miller and Assembly Rep Anderson about this, and they're both supportive. And it even seems like the Republican side is drafting the bills. So I'm hopeful that this is a bipartisan support. So I'm supportive of passing this.
Anything else? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. On to new business, and if you don't mind, I'm going to take this a little out of order and have us ask Mr. Stefani to come up to discuss item 2C so he can go home, because I think otherwise he could be sitting here for quite a while. 2C is consideration of Resolution 17-5-2178, award of bid for 2017 street resurfacing project from the Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. This is for first read only tonight. We will be going to the Public Works Committee on May 3rd for discussion and recommended approval, and then back here in a few weeks for our second read. On April 20th, we received bids from 4 companies for the resurfacing work this year. Tri-County Paving provided a low bid in the amount of $93,218.44. The 3 roads that we're going to be doing this year is a section on Sylvan, a section of Wallace between Dean and Shore Acres, and then on Oak Court between Dean and Outlook. 2 of these 3 roads are on our long-range plan for road reconstruction about 8 to 10 years down the road. It's just that the surface is getting to the point where we need to do something, so we're going to do an 1.5 mill and overlay on it. We also have some manhole adjustments that will be taken care of as part of this project. With that in mind, $4,128 of that bid is going to be allocated to the annual sewer repair budget. So once the microsurfacing work is done, the mill and overlay work is done, we have some money dedicated to Femrite Drive concrete repair. We're going to have a healthy balance remaining. I'm looking at getting some pricing to do some pavement marking on Winnequa Road, just under 2 miles worth of center line pavement marking. It's been almost somewhere between 7 and 10 years since we've done that, so we're going to look at doing some pavement marking. And then also we have some crack filling and infrared heats that we're going to be getting prices on as well. So we'll be coming forward with that in the future here.
Any questions? Mr. Kitzler?
Just for my interest, which are the two sections of road that are slated to be redone
That would be
in 10 years or so?
That would be Wallace from Dean to Shore Acres, and then the section on Sylvan. The Sylvan, Woody Lane, Midland, up in that neighborhood, there's a few sections up there that's on one of the plans for reconstruction. We have, I think, 4 to 5 big projects waiting for future work, so we're just kind of spacing this out a bit.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, item 2B, or 2A, presentations by applicants for interim alderperson position. As we all know, this is kind of totally new to us also, so I'm not sure if, and the council will make the decision, if anyone has a preference in terms of how everyone is here to give a 5-minute presentation. Should we do it in alphabetical order, or the order in which we receive the applications? Does anyone have a preference? Mr. Wood?
I think they're alphabetical in the packet, and it'd probably be easier to follow if we just
Okay.
you'd follow that.
So we'll call you up once at a time, obviously in alphabetical order, and if the council, please try to keep your presentation to about 5 minutes. If the council has any questions, you can ask those after each individual presentation. Is that okay? Oh, okay. The first person will be Carolyn Bennett. Is she here, Ms. Bennett?
I believe she's withdrawn.
Oh, she has?
No? Is that the one?
She isn't the one.
3 withdrawals.
Oh, I didn't hear about.
No.
Okay.
Let's see,
It would
2
be
of them, I guess. I heard one that wouldn't
Yeah.
be here, and one withdrew.
Walker and,
Guka?
I don't know if that one's official or not.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I hadn't heard that, so.
Okay.
Next up is Mark Buffett. You want to tell us your address, Mark, as well?
Yes, thank you. 4912 Wallace Avenue. I want to thank the mayor and the council for this potential opportunity to serve, and congratulations to the mayor for your historic election. I also want to acknowledge the other folks that are here. I know 11 people. I'm sure that probably exceeded what your expectation was. I know it did mine. I was surprised to hear that there's 3 withdrawals as well. But thank you for stepping up to serve and considering this. I think it just shows what a vital community we have and how many people that are interested in serving. My story started 17 years ago when Sally and I, my wife, moved here to raise our children. I was a little reluctant at first. I was a Near East Sider, but the idea of having a backyard was very appealing to me. Sally already had the know, trust, like relationship with Monona. For me, that developed. This city has given me and my family so much, and we feel like we're an integral part of this community, and we know that this community is an integral part of us and an integral part of our children who are now young men. It's provided an incredible foundation and an incredible place to grow up and to learn some basic values. When we first moved here on Wallace Avenue, Sally and I envisioned our kids playing in the backyard, running around with other kids, and that didn't quite happen right away. It was an older community, like many neighborhoods, but what we envisioned back then is actually now being played out. When I walk out my front door, I hear kids screaming and running and playing and having a lot of fun, and so I know that this city is filled with young families again, and it's an exciting time to be here. 10 years ago, some of the goals, the projects, the developments that are now here with us, that are alive today, you all, and some of you but this council put into action. And some of those projects, when I went back to look and see what was being worked on and visualized 10 years ago, the Monona Drive project, the Wayside Tresta development, incentives for families to renovate and to renew the older housing stock, the heritage development, pedestrian and bike safety, infrastructure improvements, sustainability initiatives, and the family attraction and retention initiative. Obviously, those things are playing out right now today, and we're experiencing the benefit of that. I get it that this governing body's primary duty is the nuts and bolts of the budget and developing and managing the city budget of operations and expenditures, public safety and services, being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. I want to be part of that. I also want to be part of the visioning and future planning of the community building aspect of this group. The goals and projects that are being considered now and looked at 10 years from now and beyond, what are they going to look like? If we have some history to look at the last 10 years and what has happened, it's remarkable what this board and what this council has done. And I would love to be part of being able to look back 10 years from now and say I was a part of these things that are unfolding and making this city realize its potential and the uniqueness of this city being surrounded by Madison. My boys are now thriving young men. I no longer volunteer as their coach and their parent helper for their soccer teams or their t-ball teams or their pee-wee football. I no longer take them to the pool, and I no longer take them to the Dream Park or bring them here to the Monona Library for the outstanding kids programs. I come here for the outstanding programs that feed me now. This building here provides an incredible array of programs from young to old and everything in between. And so I enjoy doing some volunteer here as well. I retired 2 years ago from my teaching position and a year ago from my coaching position with the Madison School District. And since then I've been filling my time with stuff around the house, doing some volunteering, upping those times, exercising over at the community center here. And I now work part-time just up the street at Monona United Methodist Church as the caring coordinator. It's been very fulfilling for me, all those aspects. But I have more time now, and I feel like I have more time and energy to give to the city, to give back to the city. And so I appreciate this opportunity to potentially serve as the interim. If I'm not chosen to be that interim, I plan to check out some of the other committees and be involved in that way as well. You've got a lot of really quality people to choose from. And so with that, I appreciate your time, and I'm excited about the future of Monona, and I'm excited about what this board is going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Buffett? Mr. Kitzler?
I guess I'll start this off. So I have kind of a comment I want to make sure I share with everybody, and I wanted to share it initially, with you, kind of giving you time to also provide any kind of response, if there is any response. So I've only been in this position for a year.
Yeah.
And so when I was thinking about running, I did talk to all the council members, and one of the common threads, and I know we had a question about this in the application, and I think some follow-up questions that happened, but one of the common threads was just what a time commitment it is. And I want to say that, not saying that individuals haven't considered it, but just not that it was a surprise to me.
Right.
And I say it in two ways. One, it's a time commitment because it's minimum, attending meetings, coming to committee meetings and kind of following up with department heads and different things like that. But it's also a time commitment of what you put into it is what you get out of it. So I would, my kind of comment is twofold. One, it is a serious time commitment. And two, whoever gets this, and if you don't get this, I certainly encourage you to reach out, learn more about how you can participate, but also learn more about the operations of the city, whether it's, becoming the interim alder and doing ride-along, or with our police or fire department, or attending different library events or different things like that. So that's kind of my comment, and certainly I can pause here in case you wanted to respond, but it's certainly just more of a comment, too.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I do understand that there's a time commitment. I mean, because there's the meetings, but there's the prep that you have to do before the meetings and getting up to speed on certain topics and issues. And I understand that. I am, fairly experienced in committee work, although at a smaller scale at our church, from being on the board of trustees, finance committee, those kinds of things, and know that, the meeting time is important, but it's important to do the homework and to do due diligence and being prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I'm fully aware of that. There's no way I could have done this even a year ago. 2 years ago, absolutely not. Brian, I don't know how you do it, to tell you the truth. But yes, I'm committed to putting that time in. And if I were given this position, I would run for election next spring as well.
Yeah, and my comment that I'll add to that is, it's one of the most enjoyable aspects of being on council is interacting, learning, attending other events and different things like that, and just really exposing yourself to the city.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And then I just had two kind of questions, if I may just continue. So knowing the city committees, commissions, different boards, what one most interests you? What one would your skills most kind of ally with, or and why? I guess is the
Well, there's a couple. The communications committee. How am I spacing this out?
Community media?
The community media. I used to be in radio and television. I was actually, my tagline and call letters were selected. So the WVMO, the Voice of Monona, I was fortunate enough to submit that. That's a committee that I did attend on occasion a couple of years ago. I would definitely be interested in that. The sustainability committee is very intriguing to me. The whole idea of planning and future planning. So is that the CDA maybe, or is that and the
Planning Commission?
And the planning commission. That intrigues me as well. Parks and Rec. I love our Parks and Rec and what that's done and how that's even gone to another level since when my kids were. So that as well. I have a love for this library and a vested interest in that too, but there would probably be a conflict there because my wife works here. So, yeah.
Perfect. And then my final question is, and I know it was provided in one of the follow-up questions, but just for our audience in the TV world,
Sure.
Why now are you applying when there was an open seat?
Yeah. It is timing. Even three months ago, I wasn't at the right place. I was still getting my footing with this new job up at the church, which is a new job and it's still evolving, and that's part of it's fun because it is evolving and I get to try new things, and so I was still getting my footing there, and then by the time I realized that there was a potential, I think the deadline had passed for submitting the signatures, and so I'm like, I was thinking, okay, next year there'll be another election, and then I was made realize about this, and so I'm like, now's the time. Now's a good time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks. Oh,
Actually,
Nancy?
I have a question.
Yeah.
This really applies to everybody, which is, I think Alderwood provided folks with a list of some of the current challenges and opportunities.
Yeah.
Although I kind of look at both of those as the same thing. But as that he sees, he mentioned just a couple, three, in his questions, and I'm wondering what you see as Monona's, maybe beyond what was listed by, what do you see as Monona's challenges and opportunities?
Challenges and opportunities, yeah. So, obviously, a challenge is that we're landlocked. And, as far as new development and new housing, that's a lot more difficult than if we were in Cottage Grove or Wanakee or whatever. So that's a challenge. I think that there's been creative things that have been happening as far as redevelopment and revitalizing and the proposed Yahara River project and those kinds of things are exciting, and those are what we need to do. And then I know there was some discussion in the news about the property up on the north side, the San Damiano, and what will happen there. I don't know, but wow, there's a lot of potential there and a lot of interesting ideas. I know I've talked with folks that have some visions for what maybe could happen there. I have some ideas that would be pretty cool. Yeah, that and the safety, some of the safety issues, and that report that we got from the university is wow. As I was reading through that, I'm just kind of blown away, like what a blueprint that is, and some ideas on what we can do. I know sidewalks are always can be a contentious issue, but there are things that have been done and that I think can incrementally continue to be done that would improve safety without having to. I know it's expensive to put in sidewalks, but not saying we go out and sidewalk every street, but yeah. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Anyone else?
I just want to say thank you.
Oh.
I forgot to say thanks.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
applying.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Next up, let's see, is Molly, is it group?
It's groupie, so
Groupie?
if you want to save your jokes for the question.
Okay.
What about Anna Gordon? Did Anna
She's
Gordon
out.
drop out? Oh.
And if you'd like to give us your address as well.
Sure, it's 4910 Shore Acres Road. So I'd like to begin by thanking the council for the opportunity to speak this evening, and especially for the opportunity to express my great enthusiasm for the city of Monona, and my desire to assume a position of leadership within the community. Though I made up my mind to pursue a position on the city council some time ago, it was my original intention to make an official run in 2018 after seeking to join some of the city committees and learn more about the processes and procedures of the council. However, there's no time like the present, and when the interim alderperson position came to my attention, I felt compelled to make my intentions known a year ahead of schedule. While I have lived and worked in a number of cities around the country, it wasn't until 2013 when my husband, our two dogs, and I moved and bought our first house on Shore Acres Road that I finally felt like I was home. Dan and I were drawn to Monona because we knew a number of other childless couples in the city and yearned to put down roots in an affordable, quiet area that was close to the bike path, the lake, and downtown Madison. And in the 4 years we've lived here, we've enjoyed watching the community evolve and appeal to a new generation of homeowners and visitors, with the addition of such businesses as Rosie's and Off-Broadway and the Waypoint Public House. I will say, though, I admit that the best unexpected perk of all has been the discovery of the Immaculate Heart of Mary Fish Fry, which I maintain is the best in town and which conveniently is located right in our backyard. It is this wonderful balance that Monona strives to strike between keeping our city affordable and continuing to expand through the augmentation and integration of mixed commercial and residential facilities that makes our community special and is a challenge I would very much look forward to tackling as a member of the City Council. Mayor O'Connor has elaborated on the fact that our landlocked city is tasked with the very unique circumstance of having to bolster its economy through the redevelopment of our existing footprint, which is why I very much have enjoyed researching and learning about the riverfront development plans, the city's year-long partnership with the university in developing Monona's parks, broadband infrastructure, and sustainable building and transportation practices, as well as its intentions to become a silver medal bike city. All of these are endeavors that cater to the increasingly young, active, and social demographic of Monona homeowners and city visitors, and are intertwined in their common aim to make Monona a greener, more accessible, and economically strong community. While I primarily represent and can inform the perspective of Monona's, and I don't like to use this word about myself, millennial population, we cannot ignore that there are a number of aging seniors in Monona whose needs also must be prioritized in order to ensure that all of Monona's citizens are active and thriving through diverse opportunities for community engagement. I am heartened to live in a city that is dementia-friendly and one that is striving to make its public facilities, including City Hall and the public library, more accessible to people of all ilk and walks of life, including those who are differently abled or who require accommodations in order to fully access and engage with the wonderful resources our community has to offer. Monona also excels in its ability to leverage technology in connecting and communicating with its residents via the civic email listserv, Nextdoor, and the Community Media Committee, as well as our beloved WVMO. But there always is room for growth in our leadership's efforts to inform and involve all members of the community about the issues that are brought to the City Council's table. As a special education teacher in the Wanakee Community School District, I have built my career upon working with multidisciplinary teams to identify and represent the unique needs and challenges of my students and their families. And as an alderperson, I would prioritize the inclusion, support, and engagement of a diverse array of stakeholders in my decision-making processes. I also would look forward to joining or closely working with the Senior Citizens Commission or the Facilities Committee in order to connect with local business owners and community members in developing and employing new approaches to accommodating and engaging Monona's elderly population. I applied for this position for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is my very vested interest in continuing to better the community in which I live and which I love. I'm a very organized, cooperative, enthusiastic learner and communicator with singular life and leadership experiences, including my active membership and participation on the executive board of my local Teachers Association, as well as my co-leadership of the Bridge Lake Point Monona Community Garden and my longstanding volunteer efforts with such organizations as the Wanakee Neighborhood Connection. All of these things have broadened my capacity to work with and represent a wide array of populations. I also have a well-cultivated, dry sense of humor that has served me well, both in finding common ground and in diffusing tension in my interactions with others, and I would very much look forward to sharing that with the council. Finally, it is my firm belief that more women need to be actively involved in all levels of government, which not only was a personal motivation of mine in pursuing this position, but why I was so heartened to see that a number of other women had applied for the position. Regardless of how the council chooses to proceed tonight or in the upcoming weeks, I very much look forward to continuing to immerse myself in community-based leadership opportunities and want to again express my sincere gratitude for the chance to present my perspectives this evening. Your representation and leadership is very important and helps make our community stronger and better. So thank you, and thank you to my righteous crew who came to support me tonight. Thank you all.
Okay, any questions?
These are your groupies?
Got it. You got it.
Alder Kitzler?
Just for the sake of fairness, I'll ask you my two questions, although I think you answered them in your response anyways, but in case. So the committees, what one most interests you, and then the why now, and I think you actually really answered that one.
So for the committees, one of the things I addressed is the Senior Citizens Commission, which I think would be an amazing opportunity. When I was in graduate school, I had the opportunity to work with older populations, but now I work with kids in my job, and I just feel that bridging that gap and finding that balance between our older residents and our younger generation of homeowners is such an important part of keeping the city totally engaged as an entire community. And then the facilities as well, being a special education teacher and seeing the different needs that need to be met for different individuals and students that I work with, that would be a cause very close to my heart. Also, I mentioned it but didn't say I was interested in it, the Community Media Committee. I'm a major pop culture fanatic, including music and television, and I think it'd be really cool to be a part of that. So,
Cool.
yeah. Did you want me to talk about the other?
I think,
Get a pass
unless
on
you
that
want to
one?
add
No.
something to it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Alder Wood, did you have your hand up?
Nope.
Nope, okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks so much for your time.
Next up is Robert Hyatt.
Good evening, esteemed mayor and all the persons. As we've heard from the two previous
Could
candidates.
you give us your address, please?
I'm sorry.
Could you give us your address?
5700 Winnequa Trail.
Thank you.
Moved there April 15th, 1990. Been here a fair long time. When I moved here, this was Jericho Heaven. And now the neighborhood's starting to fill up. There's getting to be more kids again, which is an indication of a changing demographic. Various things have happened here. You know, I lived in a swamp for 25 years until they finally filled up the park that I live on there, Oneida Park. I could have told them they could have done that when I first moved in if they'd have built the canal and used the bale. We've heard two candidates here extol the virtues of Monona. I don't think I need to go there again. We all know this is a great city to live in, but we also know that it faces serious challenges as far as remaining an independent entity. I took a $700 hit on my property tax this year. I'm not complaining. I'm glad to pay it. It's still a bargain, as I indicated to Alder Woods in my answers to his questions. I think I've always gotten a bargain from government. I don't complain about taxes. But I understand that some people don't share that opinion. So we always have to weigh the balance. How do we provide full service for the citizens of this city and still keep it affordable for people who aren't rich, who can still live here and enjoy the quality of life that we enjoy here? And it is a good quality of life. I moved here for the schools. I came from Sun Prairie, where we were interim parked when my kids were young. I looked around, I looked at 5 houses. I took the one without the fireplace, even though I really wanted one, because of the school district. Didn't hurt that I got a park. So I come from a different kind of background than many people who've been successful in business. I didn't do the traditional routes. I left home at 15. I put myself through high school, got a degree from a place called St. Bede's Academy for Girls. That's what it says on my high school certificate. I went to school for architecture. I ended up working for the City of Madison Assessor's Office for 3 years. And then I went into business for myself as a carpenter and a renovator. And over the years, I worked on hundreds of projects in this city. I've been a construction supervisor for some pretty big companies. Crivello out of Milwaukee. I did the where the Harbor Freight is out there on Midvale Boulevard. That whole 12-acre site I was project superintendent for that. And additions on the prison out there at Oak Hill. While I was running another one at Bill's Foods down the road. City Hall and Police Station in Cambria for engineering construction. So I have this wide variety of things that I've done in construction, and it's helped give me a really deep background in a lot of things in addition to my schooling. Sorry, new pants are just kind of loose. And I thought, when I saw, I'm not the kind of person who typically would run for political office. I hate the idea of raising funds because I come from a really, really heavily involved political fundraising family. My father is the retired Barron County Democratic chairman. Before that, he was in Eau Claire, actively involved in politics there. So I cut my teeth way back on Governor Lucy's campaign, David Obey's campaign, and I've always been involved all the way right on through till Tammy Baldwin. Going on forever. I knew her before when she was public intervener. Or Kathy Falk was intervener, sorry. And Tammy Baldwin was barely an alder in the city of Madison. The one thing that I see, though, for myself here is I'm stepping up to this job offer or this application because I think I have something to offer this city council. And that is, it doesn't matter what you need me to do. I have never met a job I couldn't do. That is the history. The reason why I gave you the background of me is because even though I didn't take the traditional path of go to school, go to college, do all the traditional things, leaving home at 15, I still succeeded. I ran a successful construction business. I invested in real estate, and here I am. I'm comfortable. I'm not rich, but I'm modestly comfortable. And I have a lot of leisure time now because I'm retired. My kids are gone. My wife and I are at home, and I just have nothing left to do. And this is a good job. And I'm not necessarily interested in running for a political seat, but you need something filled for a year until somebody who's really interested in running for public office decides to take it. So I'm a good interim candidate. If it's still nobody wants to run next year, sure, I'll put my name on a ballot. And if it's uncontested, I'll take the thing and work another 2 years. But I'm not really the kind of guy that wants to go out and raise funds and scream for votes. I'm not. So while some of the other people have indicated they may take the seat, I'm not particularly looking for a future in politics. That's just not who I am. I've seen that side of raising funds because of what my father did. And so as far as what I could serve here is whatever somebody else can't do, I can do because of the incredible breadth and depth of my education through the years. It doesn't matter if you want to put me on the Parks Committee or the city financing or planning for the future. All of these things I have a background in enough to carry me through, and if I don't, I can become an expert at it pretty quick. That's one of the only gift that I was really born with, was I'm just really, really able to learn really fast. So I'd like to lay a lot of flowery speeches out here, use a lot of fancy words. I'm quite capable of it, trust me. I'm extremely erudite when I want to be. But I'd rather deal in plain generalities, which is I'm just a regular guy, just like Chad, just like Doug, just like the rest of you. I live here. I love the community. I want to see it better. And because I have a lot of time on my hands, I can give you that time. And because I'm so versatile and so well educated, I can do the job. And that's really the only reason why you should think about giving me that position for a year. And I'm not looking to make a lifetime career out of it. Of course, I probably wouldn't even live through another campaign. If you want to pick somebody else with more gifted speech and more high, lofty praises of this city, go ahead. I'm not going to feel bad. But I guarantee you, I can give you all the time you need for this council. And I can do the job. That's all I have to say. Any questions?
Alder Kitzler, you want to?
I'll ask my two questions.
Your
Go right
routine.
ahead.
Yeah. So, what, knowing the city committees, boards, commissions, what one interests you the most,
As
and
I
why?
said, I'm sorry.
And then why now is the second question.
As I said, what all of you have things that you do well, and other things that you're not interested in. I like everything. That's one of the things about my life is I've always held an interest in everything. And as a result, I ended up with this really broad and deep education. I mean, I really know a lot about medicine. I know a lot about law, 50 and 1 in court, beat general casualty insurance when they had their fancy $400 lawyer there. I still whooped him in court. I learned a lot of things along the way without doing the formal way of doing it, which is go to school, get a degree in X and Y and Z, because I have that ability. It's just what I was born with. I was reading encyclopedias when I was 3 years old. I'm gifted that way. So whatever you don't want to do, whatever you don't have time to do, I'm the guy you can lean on to do it. Yeah, I like parks, really like that. Would be glad to be involved in that. But whatever isn't in somebody else here's bailiwick, I'm the guy you can do that. I'm the guy, the most boring things in the world, I find really involving. Who knows why? So whatever you can't do, I'm like your utility outfielder, the pickup guy. You know, I can pick up whatever you don't want to do, which makes me kind of a really nice piece to have. Whereas everybody else has sort of an agenda, I have none. And I think the second part of your question was,
Just why now?
why now? For 2 decades. In addition to working, and there's been less and less of it as I got older and more secure, I didn't have to work as much. Owning real estate, rent's coming in, kids gone, don't need as much money, don't really live a frivolous lifestyle. I mean, my wife and I are really frugal. We don't do anything. We don't even go out to dinner hardly. Just don't, all I did was write sports articles. I've been writing sports articles specifically about NFL football and the Packers for about 2 decades. Quite well known on the internet, as a matter of fact. But lately I've sort of found that my interest in that has turned to disinterest after a couple of decades of doing it. You see yourself saying the same thing over and over. It used to take hundreds of hours a year. My research for the NFL draft and things like that, literally hundreds of hours a year. I need something to replace that. And right now, I don't have another thing. The city council, the announcement for this position just came along at just the right time. Like he said, it's just timing. It came by at a period where I found disinterest in the things I was doing previously, and I need something to fill that time. I need something to really fill a lot of time. So whatever the council needs, I got the time, and I have the ability. And that's the 2 qualities, I think, that I offer you more than people who are still working. So,
Any other
questions
questions?
for you?
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to add one more thing, though, before I leave you. I'm not, I think you could probably already see it in me, I'm not your typical normal person. I think somebody once said, described me best as, Bob, you might be semi-autistic. I might be, but as many people have told me, Bob, once you get through the initial 3-4 weeks, it's well worth knowing you. You will find that I can be a very aggravating at times person to work with because I am a stickler for facts and truth. But in the end, I also become a really rich resource for those same facts and truth because I know the truth and I know when things aren't true. And so I think in government especially right now, we need that kind of clarity. We need a government person who can recognize truth and not be swayed by politics, by rhetoric, those kind of things. I see through that. Science, knowledge, those things generate what is truth. We can have our opinions, but we can't fight over the truth, the facts. Those are things that you can't fight. And those are things I really am good at doing. In fact, I kind of get a title of obscure, official BS checker, from one of the websites I'm on, because I'm always the guy who corrects the wrong things that aren't true. So I think I offer that in addition to what I laid for you before. So I don't want to take any more of your time.
Thank you very much. Next up is Jennifer Coor.
Thank you very much, Council, for letting me speak today. My name is Jennifer Coor. I live at 6103 Queens Way. I'm relatively new to the city of Monona. We've only been here about 2.5 years. And it seems like everyone I meet has lived here forever, so I'm kind of trying to fit in. It's been a great place to live. My family relocated from Milwaukee to take advantage of the great schools for our kids. I remember distinctly when my husband called me after he first visited Monona looking at a house, and he was sitting in the Dream Park staring at the library and the community center saying, "I found it. This is where we're going to raise our girls." And it's been a great move for us ever since. My 9-to-5 job is a research administrator at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I'm at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the Central Office of Sponsored Programs. Basically, I help faculty get funding to do their research. And as part of that, I work with federal and state and local bureaucracies to get that done, which I think puts me in a good position to have some skills to bring to the council. I've worked in higher ed for over 17 years. And I regularly review federal contracts for state and local governments. When I worked at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, we did a lot of contracts with the city of Milwaukee, so I have an understanding of how the budget process works and how to get contracts approved through city government. So a little bit of a handle on that. When I was working at UW-Milwaukee, I was an academic staff senate representative. It's part of our shared governance process. And that was during the time of Act 10, and so I was responsible for reporting back to my constituents about the changes that would affect them as a result of Act 10. I've been trying to get involved in city government for some time and have applied for several vacancies on community advisory committees, but unfortunately have not been chosen. I looked into the process of putting my name in for an alder position on the ballot, but unfortunately I missed the deadline by a week. So I had planned to go for the next round, but then this opportunity came up, and so I thought I would jump on it. I think the city of Monona has a great opportunities and challenges that it's facing, and particularly over the next several years. And the riverfront development is just one of those. I think it's going to be a boom for the city. The mixed use will increase the vitality of the Broadway corridor. I'm particularly interested in the public space area that's part of that project. I live not very far from there, and I'm hoping that my family can walk to public events that will happen in that space. The University program is also going to be a great boom for Monona. I'm a little biased because it's partnering with the university, which I support. I do also share the views of the council, the concerns about what the product will actually be at the end of that project. I understand that some of these projects may be lofty goals for the constraints of the budget at this time. I understand with the passage of Act 20 that the tax levy is strictly limited, particularly for Monona because we are landlocked. And so it's the only way for us to really increase our revenue is to grow, and being landlocked, that's just not a possibility. So revitalizing redevelopment is probably our only way to increase our tax base. I know that the citizens of Monona would be cautious about having new fees in order to gain some revenue. And I'm sure that this whole Act 20 thing issue influences the council's decisions on a regular basis. I'd like to be considered for a seat as alder because I believe I can make an impact in my community. I'd bring an outsider's perspective, being that I've only been here for 2.5 years, and hope to contribute some fresh ideas. I think I could learn and benefit from the experience of the current alders, and hope to collaborate with them to make Monona an even better place. I feel strongly about public service and hope to model that value for my children. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right. You might know it by now. So what city committee, commission, board would you be interested in, or what do your skills kind of set with?
Well, I'm interested in the planning commission. I don't have a background in urban planning, but it's an interest for me. I have a political science, public administration background, but I have an interest in urban planning. One of the things that kind of interests me about Monona is that most of the housing stock was created in the 50s, and it's a strictly car culture time period, and so we don't have sidewalks, we don't have a lot of pedestrian setup, we don't have porches on the front of our houses, and so finding ways for us to build community without, implementing sidewalks, which would be probably an astronomical cost and just not feasible in this current climate, and so looking at ways to build community without costing a lot of money. And then the other one would be the Fire and Police Commission, particularly because I've been involved with shared governance and understand the constraints of Act 10 in terms of how that affects the fire and police officers, and so being involved in that commission would be an interest.
And then why now? I think you answered that, but I'll just ask it.
Yeah, I'm looking to get to know my community and my neighbors and get involved. My children are a little bit older now and able to get out of the house more. So I'm hoping to kind of have something of my own.
Alder Moore?
Yeah, so you were one of several people that referenced the outsider's perspective, or at the risk of sounding ageist, referred to having younger people on the council and the importance of having younger people on the council. Can you share a little bit more about when you're saying outside perspective, what that means? What does that really mean for you?
For me, it doesn't have to do with age. For me, it's
Right.
the fact that I lived in Milwaukee for 15 years.
Right.
Astronomically larger than Monona. It's been a
Right.
big adjustment for me to come from a city of 600,000 to a city of 9,000, and so I'm still not used to going to the grocery store and seeing people I know. And so I think the fact that I have a perspective of living in a large community. When we lived in Milwaukee, I worked closely with our aldermen because we had a lot of neighborhood problems. And so that experience I could bring to the table, knowing how that process works.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, the next candidate is Christy Schilling. Do we have?
She is out of town.
She submitted a video.
I don't know that I got a copy of that.
I know she sent it to Leah.
I think they might have it queued up in the back or something.
Guys? Did you have a video from Christy Schilling? And are you on air because your light isn't on? So, did he say he did have it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, our next candidate, Christy Schilling, could not be here tonight, so she submitted a video. Looks like Christy.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Christy Schilling, and I thank you for this opportunity to present to you via video. It may look like I'm here at my lovely little home in Monona, but I'm actually on a bus on my way to Oaxaca, Mexico right now. So thank you for the opportunity and for your consideration. I live here on Gordon Avenue in Monona. I've lived here for about 2 years now, and I live here with my children. My daughter is 8 and is a second grader at Winnequa School. My son is 3, and he attends KinderCare on Monona Drive, but he'll be a Winnequa Owl this fall, attending 4K. I graduated from UW-Madison in 1998, and I had degrees in conservation biology, geography, and a minor in fine art. I owned my own business for 10 years. It started out as a cartography firm and eventually evolved into a graphic design and video production company, and I sold that in 2010. I currently work as the executive director of the Monona Eastside Business Alliance, formerly known as the Monona Chamber of Commerce. Many of you that know me know that I grew up on an island in Lake Huron in Michigan, so I definitely have an affinity for small towns. I would say that my value set comes from rural and small town ideals with a progressive slant. And I do stand amazed every single day at the high level of amenities that this small city can offer its 8,000 residents. And with my day job, I am out there actually selling this city every single day. It's something I could not do if I didn't believe in it, but I've grown to love this community and the people in it. I think the businesses, when I'm talking with businesses, I'm often encouraging them to consider locating here when they're starting up, or businesses that are relocating, I definitely encourage them to consider Monona. I would like to serve in this one-year interim position because I want to help the city move forward in a progressive and balanced manner. I feel like I would be a good bridge between the city and the business community. I have solid relationships formed with many of the business owners and property owners in Monona. I also have some really great connections in the city of Madison with some of the cross-jurisdictional work that I've done with the Monona Eastside Business Alliance, and that may or may not prove to be advantageous, but it's always good to know people. I'm a creative problem solver, and I really have no limit to my ideas. It's an advantage I bring to a lot of organizations is I think big, I see the big picture, and I know how to get it done. My passions are the environment, education, and equality. I grew up in an area where there were no jobs, and I grew up, never thinking I would be able to get an education, and so attending UW-Madison was a major turning point for me. I see some challenges with the one-year term, and I would think that those challenges would be kind of the person that fills this role is going to need to hit the ground running because it is only a one-year term. I feel like I bring some advantages there because I'm very familiar with the Ahara Commons project, and that development is going to be a major issue to tackle for the city of Monona in the coming year. I'm also very familiar with the TIFs that we've had and the successes they've had, the redevelopment zone, which is actually right in my backyard here. And as I said before, I know a lot of people, a lot of business owners in the community, and I think it would be a good bridge. I feel like I have a nice advantage there. And my grasp of the issues affecting the city at present is pretty good. I thank you once again for allowing me this opportunity to submit my presentation by video, and I really look forward to hearing from you, and I know no matter what you do, you'll make a great decision. So thank you for your time and consideration.
That's my question.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, that was
I
my
think you have to email her. Next up is Brad Schweiger.
Good evening, and thank you. I live at 5209 Mesa Road. A little bit about me. I've been a resident of Monona for, it'll be 3 years on July 1st, I believe is when I moved into my home. What brought me and my wife to the city was the schools and its closeness and proximity to the surrounding area, which offers not only kind of like slightly bigger city feel. What my wife and I always promote is that Monona lives a lot bigger than it actually is. For me personally, we moved up to the Madison area after living in Chicago for about 6 years. So the comment resonates when I'm used to a bigger city feel, and moving into a Madison in the Monona area really was a huge change. And for me personally, we moved here for my wife's work, and my law practice moved with me. I was focused on building that in my law practice I've been practicing now for going on 9 years. And I've gotten to the point where I want to focus on giving back to the communities in which I've served as an attorney. And this opportunity presented itself at a very good time for me, I believe. Being involved in city government and politics has been something I've toyed with for really since law school. Been involved in helping out and volunteering on various more national political campaigns. But when it comes around to that election cycle, it's a conversation my wife always have is, are you going to run for something this year? Are you going to run for something this year? We had a very young child at home this last election cycle. Still a young child. She'll be 8 months in a few days. But the timing, I think, is right with her in mind, that I start stepping up and giving back and helping to build the community I want for her. So when this opportunity arose, I had a short discussion with my wife, and she said, go for it. I think when I look back and what my plans would be, my intent and my goal was trying to run for office anyway in the next cycle. That kind of was solidified for me a number of weeks ago before I realized that this job was posted. And that was a conversation I had with my neighbor. He's a retired postal worker, and he's got a porch that has in the right angle. He's got an okay view of the lake. And my wife and I were on our back patio trying to relax on one of those very first nice days of the evening of the spring season, and just trying to relax with a glass of wine and just watching the world pass. My neighbors were over. They called us over, something that would never have happened in Chicago, by the way, and got to talking about the neighbors behind us, what their story was. He told us about how his story, he's been in the city for about 30 years, and telling me all about, well, this used to be that. The houses back here, let me tell you what they were when I was younger, and when I was here just with my dad. And those types of stories are inspiring to me because it really gives me a sense of how far this city has come over the years. And I'm excited to be offered at least an opportunity to apply to help the city progress forward. I agree that there's a lot of opportunity right now in Monona. Right now, there's a lot of development ideas, a lot of development in place. There's also challenges because there's always budgetary constraints and working within that budget. Myself, I'm a family law attorney, and like 90% of what I do is budgets. Now, the vastly different types of budgets, but budgets nonetheless. And another part of what I do and have to do on a daily basis is help people make tough choices. Because while there's a lot of things that we could do, and as I sat here in this meeting today talking about the university plans and proposals, there's a lot of good things that are in there, but there's a lot of lofty ideas a lot of things that we might want to do but might not be able to do because of constraints. And being involved in weighing, asking tough questions, so we can make those tough choices moving forward I think is something that I can help bring to the table. I think I've heard a lot of other qualified candidates that would work well in that role as well. The things that really interest me in Monona is balancing that the business development, what they want to do with the Ahara project and with the transformation of Monona Drive, is balancing those business interests while still maintaining that family-friendly and really community-focused plans moving forward. I think that was really one of the things that really attracts a lot of people to this city, and will help it grow moving forward. The things that I would be most interested in would be sustainability and planning. It's been a while, but in law school I had a interest in zoning and property. Those were kind of areas that I tended to focus on. And if we had more time, I will tell you the story how I ended up in family law. But because that's pretty far removed. So I can draw on those experiences and apply what used to be better practiced in that zoning and property to help drive this city in a sustainable and economic growth moving forward. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, and if you have any questions, I try to do my best to try to answer year two in the thing.
Are you happy with his answers? Anyone else?
I'm happy.
I'll ask one, and I feel badly that I haven't asked this of others, but if you were going to pick one thing that you would like to accomplish in this year, what would it be?
Oh, in the 1 year? That is a really good question. Yeah, first, besides really getting a handle on the position, is I think that the city has some really good plans on trying to manage like some of the. We talk about sustainability, and I'm going to go off on a little bit about is getting a better handle on some of the environmental management, and I think there's been some proposals that have come out from the city university plans, taking a look at those and trying to select something moving forward to help protect our lakes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next candidate is Kelly Slack.
Hello, I'm at 5118 Winnequa Road, and thank you all for having me this evening. I am here tonight because I am hopeful to serve someday, if not this year, but I really was thinking about this going forward. So I am a member of MESBA. I've been, was blessed to be born and raised in Monona, but came back at 30 to work for our family business and have been very involved with the Monona Chamber for the past 20 years. Now I'm on my second 6-year term, which is expiring this year, so I'm kind of like, what's next? I have to have my hands in the community. I do have 2 children, an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old at Winnequa. So I have been busy, but things are getting much, much easier as they age, and I'm looking to maybe let go of some of my responsibilities at MESBA. And this has come up. I was more looking at the opportunity a year from now, but I wanted to let my desire be known. So one thing about me is I'm not long-winded. I'm a doer and I'm a listener. I like getting things done. I'm very organized. I've been the event coordinator for the Monona Memorial Day Parade the past few years, which has kind of heightened my interest in community, along with my kids too. I've always been very involved with Monona, but with the kids getting bigger and being even more in with the school district, I'm ready to move on from the business world and get more into the community world. So I think I would have a lot to offer the residents of Monona. I've been here for a long, long time. I've been here as a kid. I've been here as a single person. Now I'm a mom of 2 kids. I have elderly parents, so I think I do have good glasses at each of the different age perspectives as well. And more than anything is I love Monona. I feel married to Monona. So if I can continue to give back, even if it's not in this position, you will see me in the future. So.
Thank you.
Did I get your questions?
Committee question, I think.
Okay, so I, don't hold this against me, I graduated from the University of Minnesota with a degree in Recreation, Park, and Leisure Studies, emphasis in sports management, so I'm very hungry to, participate on that committee, which I have applied before, and I'm in Jake's ear all the time, but I would welcome that, and others. I love to learn. I would be open to any of the committees. So, is that it? Yeah.
I'll ask my question. If you were going to pick one project to really focus on in the next year, what would it be?
I would have to say, too, learning the ropes. I do think I would have a lot to learn. One thing that I always think Monona struggles with, and I get this from the involvement with the chamber, is maintaining our identity as Monona. So I think I would be keeping my ears and eyes open how to maintain that identity, one, to draw businesses in, and for other promotional value as well. Obviously, from a real estate angle, I think, that's covered. People are fighting to get in here over the schools, but from a business standpoint, and that's where most of my perspective is for the past 20 years, maintaining that identity and bringing in the good businesses.
Could you expound on that? I mean, what do you mean? What is our identity in your view?
Well, I think it's lost to some degree. I think, we're like a first-tier suburb, and we just blend in. Like the bigger picture, people aren't aware that we exist here in this bubble. So it's a matter of selling, our value over Madison's value.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, Kelly.
Yep, thank you.
And last but not least, Kathy Thomas.
I will not be exciting, entertaining, interesting, but I'll try and keep it short and sweet. First, a little bit about myself and what I bring to the position. My husband and I have lived in Monona for over 30 years. We raised 2 kids here who are incredibly wonderful, successful kids, and they would credit this community, give it a lot of credit for their success, and we all owe it a lot. So, having said that, I'm retired now, but I'm still active in the community because I think you need to know this community. So I'm on the parade committee, I'm on the Monona Grove Education Foundation board, the library board, and foundation board, and the senior foundation board, and I work at doing volunteer activities and raising funds for those communities. As Christy said, being on a council, you have to be able, I think, on a short-term interim basis, you have to be able to hit the ground running. So by experience, before I retired, I worked as an executive assistant in the Office of the County Executive, and I was also executive assistant in the, this is a long phrase, state government. I was executive assistant to the Administrator of Division in Children and Family Services. There I did budgetary stuff, I did public policy, I did legislative liaison, grant administration, and anything else the boss asked me to do. So I bring a background of experience to the council. In addition, I have served for more years than I care to think about on this council and have served on virtually all city committees and commissions. I also believed while I was on the council that it was important to have a sense of the community, and so I worked on a lot of volunteer activities, which I won't bore you with, but I think you all know some of them. So to the question that one of the things I was told we were asked was to explain why we were interested in this position. And for me, it's pretty simple. The answer is it's the same as probably why you ran, and that is that part of my core value is public service. Monona has always been a place, a very special place. And I believe when you live in a special place, you have a responsibility to pay it forward. And you do that by trying to help maintain the community as a very special place. And to your question, Andrew, about why now? Because, and people have said, some people have said to me, well, you should apply, and other people have said, you should, but you'd be crazy if you would. I sat there where you are, thinking about, having to appoint interim members. And it is not an easy task because, and I want to interrupt for 30 seconds and say how exciting it is to have so much young enthusiasm who are interested in government service. Where have you been all of our years I wish we were growing up. But it's really important, and I hope you all apply for city committees, get involved in volunteer activities, because one of the special things about Monona is that it is filled with volunteers, whether it's coaching, whether it's singing at a choir, whether it's helping raise money for the library. It's just a really important thing to do. So back to my thing. So why now? Because when we excuse me, in the past when we have had to pick interims, we have looked at, what are the criteria that you choose? And there are a couple of things, and we always wanted people with experience and who had some knowledge of the city, because you don't have time to, you have to hit the ground running. That's one thing. The other is there is a school of thought that says when you appoint someone and they are a member and they are an incumbent, it gives them a leg up on anyone else and an advantage about any if they're going to run for future elections. So we always had it, not always. We sometimes had a criteria that says you have to agree that you're not going to run again. So since I'm experienced and since I'm not going to run again, that's why now. In terms of committees, been there, done that. I think you guys get first choice, whatever, it works for me. I like them all.
Any other questions? Chad?
If there's one additional feather you'd like to be able to put in your cap, what would it be over the next year?
It's not about what I want to see accomplished. It's what I want the city to get accomplished. And I am incredibly, I don't want to use the term anxious, but the Triangle project, where the city has an immense amount of time, energy, and money involved, is right on the cusp. We've got developers there. We're ready to go, but stuff is not approved. And that is a key. To me, that's key for this city in the next year to get that done and accomplished. There are lots of things, but man, that's a biggie, in my opinion.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is discussion and possible action on final candidates for appointment of interim alderperson. And I think now is where we all have to talk about how we want to handle this. Alder Wood and I talked a little bit about this over the past couple of weeks. Do we want to narrow it down to 3 or 4 candidates to consider to vote on next time, or to bring back next time? I'm willing to listen to any. Attorney Cole, there isn't any specific
Mayor, before
process, right?
Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make sure, because I knew that Chris Walker had indicated he'd withdrawn, but I wasn't sure that he might be here tonight. So, but you didn't call for him.
Oh, okay. I didn't call the other 2 who I'd heard had withdrawn either. Chris Walker?
Is there anyone here?
I did call
Okay,
Carolyn
all right.
Bennett, and okay.
I wasn't sure. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. Attorney Cole, there isn't any specific process we have to follow, is that correct?
No, there's no process. The law just says it's the appointment of the council. You all determine the method that you would need, you would use. The only ultimate rule is a majority of you will need to agree on whoever would fill the spot. So if, for instance, 3 people are nominated by 3 different alders and you vote and they all split the vote, at some point in time you would have to narrow it down to the point where one person is going to receive the votes of at least 3 of them. Other than that, no, it's pretty open-ended.
Alder Wood?
Yep. I guess we did, the mayor and I exchanged numerous emails while she was trying to vacation about this, because we were really like, I think we were at 4 or something applications, and all of a sudden it turned, like 36 hours, it was 11. So, what's the process? So, my initial thought was to try to figure out a way to cut it down to 3 or 4 applicants, possibly tonight, to have a more manageable sort of group for the next meeting. The more I thought about it, and as we've gone through the process, now we're down to 8. I think the bigger challenge has been to try to find out more information about candidates, in particular candidates, or rather applicants, I guess I should say, who we didn't have, or I didn't have anyway, a lot, or in some cases very little information about. So I don't feel the need to winnow it down. I mean, I think that the next meeting, it was Attorney Cole sort of indicated that in the process of nominations, it'll get, probably take more than 1 vote would be my guess. Maybe not. We have, really a lot of really excellent candidates. I was really impressed by everyone who spoke tonight, and really impressed by your supporters sticking in. And if you stay all the way to adjournment, I'll be really impressed.
We lost one.
Lost one. All right. So really appreciate that. I did want to say one thing. I don't know if people have noticed. I've been fiddling with my cell phone tonight because somebody mentioned that it's getting easier with their kids getting older. Well, not always. I have 4 kids that I've raised who live in the Madison, all still in the Madison area. One of them managed to hurt her knee earlier this evening, and I've started getting text messages in the middle of the meeting about it. And so fortunately, they're all adults, and 2 of the other adult children sort of took control, but they're still texting me. She won't go to the ER because her knee is in pain. This is in too much pain. So, good luck with. They don't really. They always find a way to need you, I think. Anyway, but sorry for that misdirection there, but I did want to kind of explain why, if I seemed a little preoccupied, it's because I was at times.
Does anyone else have any thoughts?
Well,
Alder Holmquist, we can come back next week with all 8, and however you'd like to do it.
So, I mean, I echo, this was a wonderful exercise, and I say that in the sense of, it's a wow. There's a lot of people here that have a lot to contribute to our wonderful city here, and it's a great thing to see. And I hope, regardless of what happens, that we all get the same applications for commissions and committees and boards, because I tell you, I don't know how many years we've, 4? 5? Some of these groups, they're the same group. And I'm not necessarily sure that there have been applications for some of these committees and commissions. And you guys all have a lot that we could be capturing in these different groups. So please submit those. I wanted to voice my position on this, and really has to do with that piece around the intention of running and appointment. I have a concern of appointing someone with the intention of running less than a year from now. We're past that point. We're going to be a couple of meetings deep. I think appointing someone that has experience and is not interested in running is a position that I would like to see us consider strongly. And I would, I'm not sure if you're asking for nominations at this point or just statements and then come back for nominations.
I guess I'm interested in hearing how all of you would like to proceed, so probably not necessarily nominations at this point. If
So-
everyone else decides that we should go ahead and have nominations at this point.
So that's my concern regarding appointmentship of how we handle it. So.
Chad?
I would concur with those comments. I mean, I think, first off, I'm incredibly impressed and proud of this community to know that there are so many people interested in stepping up. But that said, as an alder who has served now, going into my 8th term, and I've had 3 uncontested elections. And that's a problem, because in a democratic system, we have to go out and say why it is we're running to represent the people, and you have to throw in your hat and compete in an election. And so we benefit from having contested elections. We don't benefit from anointing someone as an alder for life and then not having a contest when it comes time to be on the ballot. So I feel conflicted about this, because I have seen so many of you come before us tonight, and I think, wow, what an amazing problem to have. All of these talented, engaged people who want to be a part of service in this community, and who could be on this council for years moving forward, and that will be good for this community. What we really need, though, and what I really want to urge all of you who have come out to serve, is that we need you to show up in December with your nominating papers. I can tell you, just for what it's worth, and this varies from election to election, but you end up raising about $1,000 to $1,500 maybe to run a competitive campaign in the city of Monona, to get some yard signs and to send out a mailing. And now with social media and many other ways of communicating, you probably could get by with spending a bit less. And that's what I hope many of you ultimately do. is to decide that you want to run come December. You know, you've got to go out and get 50 signatures. It's a pretty low threshold, really. You know, I recommend you get 60 just so that you're sure to comply. You have a month. Normally you have about 4.5 weeks. It is during the holidays, but then you'll turn those in, and then you'll be on the ballot, and you'll show up for a debate, though we haven't had a debate for the last 3 elections in my 2-year term because we haven't had any more than the number of candidates that are running for the office. So anyway, I don't want to speak too much on the point, but I want to encourage you all to stay engaged in this process and to be here for that critical election. And, you know, sometimes you lose. I lost an election by 1 vote. You know, really, 1 vote I lost by. And, but, you know, you brush yourself off and get back up, and here I am. But I think it would be a great thing to see 5, 6 people on the ballot in any given election for Alder, and we be talking about these issues that are so important to this community. So I do believe that it's probably serves this city and this body well to consider, some of the people that are thinking they're going to fill this spot for a year and then move on with their lives. But I almost feel like I have to sleep on that, because here it is tonight. I've seen these individuals for the first time, and my gut tells me I'm not willing to make that commitment. I might be willing to cast a ballot for someone that may yet serve here indefinitely, but there's my brain tells me that it serves this body well to have someone here that can hit the ground running, and then we have all these wonderful people that I hope at least half of you throw your name in the hat come next time. So that's where I'm at tonight.
Alder Kitzler?
Quite simply, I mean, I agree. I think we should sleep on it. We should stick to the timetable that we had voted on at the previous meeting, where we'd make the decision May 17th. The only thing I will kind of push back on is it's certainly not an appointment for life. And whoever does get appointed, if they do run, they would have to run again. And as you well know, you could lose by 1 vote or whatnot. So I just want to push back a little bit on that and say, it's certainly not an appointment for life. And the individual would have to run again if they wanted to.
Alder Moore?
I would just say, as the new kid on the block, I'm breathing a sigh of relief here. No, because it is. I just want to, echo what other people have said. Obviously, it's really talented group of people, I just think it's terrific that everybody's so invested. I know I chose to run because I decided I was going to make Monona my forever home. And so after collecting some dust around my property, I decided it was a good way for me to give back. And I can't say enough what other people have already said, which is I would encourage people to get involved in committees. I think this is a pretty rad group of old people. But I totally appreciate what some of the younger people also talked about, and the turnover in Monona. When I first moved in, I had literally 2 86-year-old gents on either side of me as neighbors, and they had both built their homes by hand 50 years prior, and And in fact, their kids were homecoming king and queen, so they talked about how there was a track, across my yard between the two. So it's part of what's endeared me to this community. So I'm not sure where I am tonight, too, but I think we should stick with the plan in terms of, because I certainly don't feel like I'm in a position to cast any kind of a vote tonight or nomination.
Okay, well, Attorney Cole has a suggestion for a process that I asked him if he would explain for us.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. As we said at the beginning, this is totally the council's process. So you can change it any way you want. I think it's probably just good to lay out a framework now, in fairness to the nominees and to everybody going into next meeting. So what was discussed and what I think works, but again, it's your process to change as you wish, would be that each alder next meeting would have the right, but not the obligation, to nominate one person. So you can nominate one person, or you're free not to nominate anybody. Each nomination would require a second from another alder. That wouldn't burn up your one nomination. So you could nominate one person, but then second somebody else's as well. We'd then have a round of voting for all of the individuals nominated. If after that round, one individual secured a majority of the council votes, that person then would be appointed. If nobody secured a majority on the first round, the two individuals that received the most votes in the first round would then proceed to a second round of voting, and whoever received the highest number of votes in that second round would be appointed. And to the nominees, you're free to contact the alders as you wish in the next 2 weeks. It's probably a good thing. They probably will not want to meet with you as a group for fear of violating an open meetings law, but one-on-one contacts would certainly probably be preferred and encouraged. You can contact one or more of them as you feel appropriate.
And you can contact all of us through the city website. Our email addresses are there. Does Alder Wood?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood what Bill just described. So we go through the first round, get the nominations, let's assume there's, say, 3, and go through that step, well, even more, I guess. So what's the second? So you go through one round of voting and there's nobody has a majority. The second round would be to just vote again on those same nominees, or would we have a new round of nominations?
No, the second round would just be the two nominees that received the most votes at the first round.
Okay, and I guess since there's 5 of us voting, there's no way to have more than 2, right? So I don't.
Yeah,
unless everybody got 1 vote.
That would be a problem.
But if you had one person get 2, and forgive me for interrupting, but
go ahead.
If you had one person get 2 and then 3 get 1, the person with 2 is the winner?
No, a plurality would not win. A majority would have to happen. So I think in that event, going into the second round, then you would still have another round of, because the person with 2 votes obviously is in the second round. The 3 with 1 vote have tied, so they're still the second highest vote getter. They're going to have to go to a round 2. If everybody sticks with their votes, there's going to be a deadlock.
Yeah.
If somebody changes their vote, that would break that, and then we may have to go to a third round then to narrow it down. And I'm just throwing out suggestions here, but if the council was agreeable, one way to break a deadlock in the event that nobody changed their votes and it just stayed 2-1-1-1 would be that the council allows that the mayor breaks the tie. That wouldn't get the person appointed, but that would break it so at least you could proceed to a further round with just 2 people.
Right. I would want
Sir,
that.
did you have a?
Could I presume that we could allow the mayor to vote no matter what?
You could.
Yeah.
You could. I think that would be not consistent with the mayor's general voting rights and duties, but a majority of this council would certainly authorize it. But I think you may want to agree on that. I guess my point is you might want to lay out whatever ground rules you want to do tonight. So the nominees and all the alders have 2 weeks to sort of know what the ground rules would be.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I would simply say that in the event of something like what I put forward, that we had a 2-1-1-1, I guess if it went to a second vote and it didn't change, we would need the mayor to cast a ballot, which would either create a tie between two, or it would give 3 votes to someone. And so that would allow us to move to that resolution.
Alderwood?
I wanted to speak to the general point, but just following up on what Chad just said, under that scenario, 3 wouldn't be a majority, would it? I mean, it would be, because there'd never be 6 people voting if the mayor votes. Well, you need 4. I mean,
It's true. But it would, you would need to break the 3. The 3 second place
right,
people.
yeah, right.
And I guess that's what I was contemplating would be the mayor could intervene to at least get you to a viable last round.
And then the mayor would not vote in the last round.
Correct, unless there was another deadlock.
Okay.
I guess I would like to see us have at least 2 rounds, at least 3 rounds, I guess, if it gets to that. If you go just the 5 sitting alders, go through at least 3 rounds of voting before we say, okay, Mayor, we need you to break this deadlock, and then move on. I would not support just giving the mayor a vote from the beginning, because I think this is and should be a council decision.
Okay.
I guess if it proves that we can't make that decision, then okay, we need to go to the mayor for assistance with that. But I'm pretty confident that won't happen, and that we should do our best to make the decision as the 5 alders.
Alder Holmquist?
So one consideration would be in the event of the 2-1-1-1 version, that the 2 would move on, and then the 1-1-1s, that we would just go through a round of voting with those 3 individuals at the council level, to break that, to have the next person move up to the runoff, and keep the mayor out of it. Sorry.
That's okay with me.
Yeah, it's okay there.
That's a great idea.
Does that,
Because the reason why I suggest that is I think it might give the impression that the mayor needs to vote for one of the 1-1-1s.
Yeah.
When they may or may not want to. So this avoids that
okay.
scenario.
Anyone have any other suggestions? I think we'll need a motion now, and Joan, can you read that back to us?
3-1-1-1 situation.
We don't, no, we need a
2-1-1-1.
motion. I think, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds like a.
Excuse me, if I might just ask a question on the are they running, is there any concern about running afoul of open meeting law if you, as a council, close executive session to discuss this?
No, we're not going to do it in closed session. It's
The
not.
reason I say that is because you already have all of the candidates who stood for this appointment on tape that you can review. Because to sit here and hear it all one right after the other without digesting it. You still have to work with this person that you end up appointing. And if there's something in that tape that, I run across this a lot, if I annoy people, you might not want to work with them. Or if somebody seems overly eager to take the seat because they have political ambitions.
Sir, I think we get it, but we're not really supposed to let someone speak outside of the regular time allotted for appearances. So, thank you, though.
It's procedural, and it has something
Yeah.
to do with me.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
feel
I
that
think
the
we're done,
council would be
though.
better off being able to deliberate without us here.
Please, we can't do that. Attorney Cole has already checked into the legalities of that, and we can't. But you're correct in saying that we can go back and look at the tape,
Yes.
because that will be available on YouTube for all of you to watch also, if you'd like to. So we need a resolution or motion,
I'll take it.
I guess. Okay.
Okay, speak slowly.
Okay, I will move that we follow the following procedure. In that each alder can nominate one applicant, and that nomination would need a second. That seconding another alder's nomination would not use up that alder's ability to nominate someone else. That the council would vote on all nominees if no nominee gets a majority, then another round of voting would take place with the first and second top vote getters advancing into that round of voting.
Second, I'm sorry.
First and second top vote getters would advance to the second round. And then last, if you, in the event there is a 2-to-1 tie, that we follow Alder Holmquist's suggestion. Sorry, okay. If there's a 2-to-1 tie, the candidate with 2 votes would advance, and the 3 candidates tied with 1 vote, the alders would vote just on those 3. The top vote getter would advance to the final round, and they would be voted on until a majority is achieved.
Okay, I have to repeat that last part, I'm sorry. The nomination, nominees with 1 vote are voted on.
By all 5 of the alders.
Okay.
The top vote getter of those people, of those 3, would advance to the runoff, or to the final round.
Final vote,
Right, until one of those 2 top vote getters receives a majority. Is that everybody?
Hold on.
I have one question.
Okay.
If the 5 of you are voting on the 3, who each have 1, what if that person gets 3, or what if one person gets 3 or 4 votes? Do they advance to a second round, or are they considered?
No, they just advance.
They should advance, correct?
The
Okay.
intent would be that they would just advance to the.
Okay.
Because they wouldn't be, at that point, wouldn't be running against the person who got 2 votes.
Okay.
So just chat.
Okay, so that's a motion?
Yes.
And is there a second?
I'll second it, but then I have a comment.
Okay, and that's fine. And first of all, did you have a comment,
Yep.
Alder Holmquist? Okay. And then Alder Spade.
Although I don't think it will matter. If everybody has the opportunity to vote, and second, it doesn't matter, I'm not sure why we have to have a second for our nominations.
You You don't. My thought was it would avoid the possibility, make less likely the possibility that you could have 5 alders nominating 5 individual people.
Oh. We'll make that a reality.
It could happen anyway.
It could happen.
That was my only reason for requiring the second, is it somewhat would narrow the field, presumably, because at least they would have the support of 2 alders.
I'm sorry.
No. Alder Spate and then Alder Moore.
So I just wanted to raise the possibility, and forgive me, I'm going to sound like some sort of math geek for focusing on the permutations of what might happen, but in the scenario where we have someone gets 2 and then we have this 3-way tie, it's quite possible we could end up with a 2 to 1 vote on those 3 candidates, which means we then have 3 candidates that go to the final round. Because we have a tie for the second place, and we have 2, then we have the person that got 2 in the first round. Is that okay? Then we're voting for 3 people.
Well, I would interpret it, your second round, all of that is to determine who is going to be the sole individual to run against the person that got the 2 votes in the first round. Because to Alder Wood's point, you can't, it's not fair to determine anything in those subsequent rounds because they're not running against the person that achieved the 2 votes. So in your scenario, for instance, you get another tie. You would proceed to another round solely to narrow it down to see who is going to run against the person that won in the first round.
So essentially applying the tiebreaker rule to the second round. Okay.
So
I would agree with that. I just wanted to make sure that, I don't think that's part of our.
It's not.
It's the intent of our.
It's the rinse and repeats.
Yeah.
I think ultimately you have to have a final round of voting with just 2 people.
Alder Moore?
I just wanted to clarify that we would each have 1 vote and only 1 second. Is that correct?
Doesn't sound like.
Yes, you're not going to have, an alder is not going to be able to make multiple seconds, if that.
Okay, I just didn't know the way it was written. I wasn't sure if that was clear in the motion, so I just want to make sure that that was clear. We each have 1.
I would agree with that. When you get done.
What am I doing?
That each alder would should get 1 nomination, and then they could also make 1 second.
Okay, because the other way it's worded.
But you can second somebody you didn't nominate, right?
Okay, each alder is
Yes.
1 nomination, and
Which goes against what he was saying, where you would think 2 people are out.
okay, we'll, alternate. And then the second can still nominate someone.
Right.
Alder Kitzler, did you have?
Nope, I'm good.
City Administrator, or Alder Wood, did you have?
Yeah, well, just occurred to me that the process I outlined, based on others' comments, but did not include a role for the mayor. But I think the process that we have, there shouldn't be a need for the mayor to have a role.
Assuming all 5 alders attend the next meeting, because God help us if one of those absent.
Should have better check the calendar.
Everybody come.
True. Well, then it's just that standard operating procedure. As long as we have a quorum, the mayor breaks ties. So.
Okay. Administrator Little, did you have something to
Yeah, just
add?
just a quick plug. I know everybody, for example, everyone wants to be on Parks Board, but just to reiterate what others have said, sometimes we do have openings on other committees because it's a good problem to have, but we have a lot of committees where sometimes people don't step off. They, are interested in continuing, but sometimes we do have committees that are less well-known, such as Board of Review or Zoning Board of Appeals, where, I think sometimes we have to beg people on the street to apply for some of these committees we have. They're a little less glamorous, but they're extremely important. And others that are a little less well-known, like Landmarks Commission is another one that's, sometimes I've seen that one look for people. So So if you don't get on first round, don't be discouraged. Sometimes it's just more a matter, people just want to continue, and, it's a good problem to have. And second of all, I'll just reiterate that, I've helped people through the election process for 15 years, and I know it sounds really scary. It's really not that bad. You just got to read the directions, really careful on the paperwork, but it's not super hard. It's just going to a coffee shop and getting some people to sign your forms. So don't let that intimidate you. It's not like the national elections where, people are going to post bad videos of you on YouTube or something like that. So as you can see, it's a nice collegial group we have here. So.
Okay. All right, so we have a resolution and a second.
I was
Alder
just
Moore?
going to say, since people were just encouraged to visit the current alders, that I like dark chocolate.
This is not bribery.
Well, you're really comfortable,
This
really
is not
right away.
We might have 2 vacancies soon.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor of approving this process for our May 15th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And I think Attorney Cole is going to write this up in a little more detail as well, and maybe we can even codify it for the future councils. Okay, so again, thank you all. We have been really stunned by the number of applicants, and you've all really have a lot of great experience. It's going to be a tough choice. So come back on the 15th. In the meantime, if you want to contact any of us, any of the elders or myself with any questions or just to talk, please feel free to do so. Thank you.
Yeah, could I add to that too? Because I was a little late in asking my question about, for the 4 of you that spoke, and I didn't get to ask you what, if you had a burning issue, I'd love to hear from each of you kind of what your burning issue is. And, I guess we can't, the great thing about open meetings laws and all that, to make sure that our, democracy doesn't happen in, smoke-filled rooms, is that, like if you send me something, like I can't just easily forward it to everyone, or we can't have a conversation about it. But I can share things. We just can't discuss it, I guess. So I will pass on your answer to me, or you can send it to everyone on the council to solve that. So.
And I would also like to thank Alder Wood for his group of questions that he sent to everyone. He did forward those answers on to all of us, and it was extremely helpful to have that, I think, for all of us. So thank you, Alder Wood. Anything else? Are we ready to move on to Bird City? Let's. Okay, item 2D, consideration of resolution 17-5-2179, approval of Bird City, Wisconsin application. Alders Wood and Spate. And this is new business, so.
I could speak just briefly on it if you want. Alder McKeever described the program earlier. The application that he did most of the work preparing this, but basically it hits the categories that are needed as identified in the Bird City application in 5 different categories, and it's basically things that we are already doing in the community. So.
Any questions? Alder Kitzler?
I have these pet issues, I guess. I'm certainly not a non-bird person, but I am semi-concerned about the cats issue and how we would enforce that, and what your guys' thoughts are on addressing that, since that seems to be a category that we need to check off or something.
Well, we already have an ordinance that prohibits cats running free.
Oh, do we?
So, yeah.
Did not know that.
If that were...
And no questions asked.
Don't
ask, don't tell.
Yeah, I think if in the future that were repealed, then we'd have to look. I think the requirement is to show that you're limiting or removing hazards to birds, and there are other ways than having an ordinance to do that, but until, as it stands, we meet that criteria.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, I guess down to reports of committees, commissions, boards, etc. Alder Spate?
Well, I just wanted to make sure, do we not need to go into closed session tonight?
We have an amended agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, working on the old one.
Right.
All right. I do not have anything to report tonight.
Alder Wood?
No report. I think I talked about going to the university presentation at the campus last week, and I know there's some more others coming up this week, and I don't think I'll be able to make those. There's several coming up in the next couple of weeks. I would really encourage anybody who can to go to those. I found it a really great way to pick up, to learn what the proposals are, more hands-on, and to meet them, which is really pretty cool. They're really impressive work, and there's just a whole lot of energy when you've got a bunch of 20 to 25-year-olds working on something that they passionately care about.
Alder Holmquist?
There is a Public Works meeting this Wednesday at 6:30, and there is a Plan Commission meeting on the 8th.
Alder Kitzler?
Speaking of openings, one of our library board members is moving out of the city, so if you're interested, apply for the library board. It's a wonderful board to be on, and I really enjoy it.
And Alder Moore?
I have nothing to report, except for I am going to the university side of things on the 3rd at the university, so I look forward to it and hope to get in a couple of the others here as well.
Okay, yes, Alder Wood and City Administrator Little and I will be there as well at the wrap-up event down on campus on the 3rd that evening. I just had a couple things. I wanted to thank the staff for all their patience and work during the remodeling of the city offices, which really look nice and they're much more functional. And thank you, April, for organizing all of that, and everyone else for all of your work on it. I also wanted to say that we are going to be starting the process of taking a fresh look at the Brave facilities study. As kind of the part of that, we're hoping to do a daytime tour of at least the central city buildings here sometime in June. And we'll be contacting people to see if we can work out a date that everyone can make it. So, City Administrator Little?
Yes, and I'd like to especially thank Brad Bruin in our office for helping with the office remodel. He was super, super helpful with that, and the patience with all the dirt and the dust, you just can't believe it, but it's just super functional now, so it turned out great. And as a few of you mentioned, we have the University Year presentations Wednesday night, and also Dane County Cities and Villages Association is being hosted at the same time here in Monona, so we're going to try to be two places at once, so it'll be a busy week, and Save the Lakes breakfast is that morning. So we have at least 2 meals that day that we will be partaking of. So if you're interested, I can maybe still squeeze you in the dinner at DCCVA. Let me know, or let the campus know if you're coming to that event. So.
And City Clerk? Andrews?
Getting licenses ready for relicensing. We've got a large packet for the License Review Committee next week, and then those will be presented at the council in the first meeting in June.
And Attorney Cole?
May 1st is May Day, but it's also Law Day, so find your favorite lawyer and give him or her a hug.
Did you make this up, or is this real?
No, that's real.
I'm looking this up. Okay, I really would.
It's Municipal Clerks Week. How can it be lawyers?
Yeah.
We can have 2 officials. Come
It's
on.
apparently a very important week. We have no appointments tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
Alder Moore, in a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Nice.
I'll hit this hammer again.